Can you hear me?
I can hear you loud and clear. Can you hear me?
Yes, yes. How are you?
I am amazing.
And great to meet you too. It's been a long time coming.
Yes, yeah, it was a great connection through Carol, and I love being a podcast guest. Everybody says start a podcast, start a podcast. I say no, I'm happy being a guest.
Right, right.
Yeah,
So thank you. So just give me a few seconds here. So there's no echo or anything. There's nothing interfering. Okay,
no.
perfect, perfect. Okay, so let me go here. Take your mind into the wonderful world of physical, emotional, psychological, and spiritual wellness. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Kinetic Hour. Conversations with you and guests. With your host, Kenan Wesley Mason. All right. Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, and welcome to another edition of the Kinetic Hour. I am your host, Kenan Wesley Mason. Welcome one, welcome all. Thank you all for tuning in once again as we are simulcasting live on LinkedIn, simulcasting live on Facebook, and simulcasting live on Instagram. So welcome to all three platforms. As always, go to my YouTube channel and my Rumble channel and subscribe. It is the Kinetic Hour right here, the Kinetic Hour. That's Kennetic. The Kinetic Hour. Subscribe, click thumbs up, click the notifications. Tell everyone that you know to subscribe. Leave your comments. Share these videos with everyone that you know. It's always great to do these shows, and it's always great to have great guests. As I always say, whether it's one person watching or 1,000 people watching, it doesn't matter as long as my voice continues to permeate. So again, thank you so much for tuning in. And as you can see on the side of me, my guest, and I'm glad she's here as we're going back across the Atlantic Ocean. She's a British sports scientist, seasoned explorer, resilience specialist, and a water-loving nature advocate. She's also a TEDx speaker and $1 Million Roundtable speaker. She's led 70 global expeditions, including 10 in the Arctic and 3 to Antarctica. She's the first woman to start an expedition travel company in the Middle East in Dubai in 2003 called Mountain High. When she's not speaking, teaching, or leading retreats and expeditions around the globe, you will find her in, on, or around, or sometimes underwater. She's on a lifelong mission to be a voice of nature and echo inspiring messages and guidance from the mountains, oceans, forests, and wildlife. She's also the author of her latest book entitled Uncharted Waters, Discover Your Hidden Depths. And again, I'm glad she's here. Please welcome to the Kinetic Hour, Julie Miles Lewis.
Thank you so much for that incredible introduction. And we're everywhere. This is very ubiquitous, global, Instagram, LinkedIn, Facebook, Rumble, everything. Yeah, so yeah, it's good. All in the geographically StreamYard room.
That's right. That's
Across
right.
the water. Yeah.
That's right. And thank you for taking the time out, because I know there's a great time difference as we're speaking right now. It'll be tomorrow pretty soon. So
Yeah, I'm actually normally I'm in bed by 9:30 p.m. and I'm up at 5:30 a.m. So this is an exception to the rule, which
right.
I will absolutely love, and I enjoy making exceptions to the rule.
Thank you. Thank you for accepting the invitation and making that exception to your rule. So thank you for that. And I was looking at, because I have a lot that I want to cover here, and I was looking at your long resume, and I noticed that one of your credentials because I had a previous guest about a month ago. She also went to the Yale University Science of Well-Being. So when I saw that, I was like, oh, okay, that's must be a pretty cool spot to go to. If I'm seeing one of my other guests attend the same type of class, if you will, or teaching.
Yeah. Yeah, that was actually online. I
Okay.
have family in New York, but it was actually an online program. I think that's the beauty of most universities now, that you can be anywhere and do the courses remotely. So
Right.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I saw that. I thought that was pretty cool. Um, so let's start from the beginning, because you've been all over the world, obviously. So what got you started into being such the explorer? What was the starting point of you becoming the explorer after almost 2 decades in the health and wellness field? Is that
That's
correct?
right. Yes, yeah. Um, Ken, and when my father gifted me a globe for my 7th birthday, we used to play this game called Spin the Globe. And we'd spin the globe, and I'd close my eyes and then put my finger on the spot to open my eyes. And then we'd have wild conversations about what people did there, what kind of terrain there was, what they ate, what they wore. It was like a mini geography lesson.
Yeah.
I would I would then have wild dreams that night about climbing mountains, dog sledding in the Arctic, being in the jungles, you know, surrounded by animals in Africa. And then at school the next day, I would actually invite people at playtime to come on an expedition with me. So I was really a kind of a bit of an Indiana Julie at the age of 7. And,
Okay.
as time went on and roles and responsibilities and going to school and university, I kind of forgot those childhood dreams of being an intrepid explorer. And so it was 33 years later, for my 40th birthday, that I climbed a mountain to celebrate 40 years on the planet. And standing on top of that mountain with my arms outstretched, I'm on a mountain, I'm on a natural high. Ooh, Mountain High, that would be a really cool name for a company to
Yeah, yeah.
encourage more people. I would encourage listeners never to give up on the childhood dreams. Sometimes it's delayed gratification. And so after 18
Right.
years in health and fitness sports management, it was really going to a bigger playground. So instead of the gym, tennis, squash, aerobic studio, all of a sudden it became the mountains, the forest, the ocean, and the desert. So a huge playground.
Mm.
And taking people with me, because people sometimes they want to do things but they're not quite sure where to start, who to go with. So it was very much, we're going here, who wants to come, and off we go. So that first mountain climb back in 2002, which was actually designated as International Year of the Mountain. I mean, what a great year to actually climb your first mountain.
Right.
Was really the platform that literally changed the direction of my career or my focus. Yeah.
Mm.
So
Mm.
so from a globe at 7 years old to having an epiphany on top of a mountain 33 years later, thinking, yeah, I remember that childhood dream.
Yeah.
Live it.
Right. Right. Yeah. Matter of fact, I'm going to put this up on the screen here, just so people can have a little bit of an idea of where the places where you go. Now, this place here, because I was reading your bio again, and I saw the
Yeah.
name here, and so this is where you went to celebrate your 40th birthday. Is that correct?
Right, that's Kota Kinabalu in Malaysia. Yep, so we flew
Yeah.
into Kuala Lumpur. I managed to persuade 5 of my friends to come and climb the mountain with me. It's 4,095 meters above sea level. So we flew into Kuala Lumpur, then on to Kota Kinabalu, and off we went. And then after coming down from that mountain, we stayed at a beautiful 5-star beach resort
Yeah.
with very sore legs, because it's quite a steep ascent and descent. So
Mm.
that we celebrated in style at a very nice beach hotel.
I guess so, huh?
Yes, you got to
Ye-
have the cake somewhere. It
Yeah.
wasn't feasible at the top of the mountain, so we celebrated at sea level.
Now, and I'm going to put something else up real quick before we kind of really get into everything, because when we were kind of setting all of this up, you were about to go on another expedition in Turkey. Is that correct?
That's right. There's a beautiful walk that's actually voted one of the top 10 walks by the Sunday Times,
Yeah,
called the Lycian Way. It's actually
right.
540 kilometers all along the Turkish coastline. We
Uh-huh.
covered 96 kilometers early April, and the route was established in 1999, and it's a beautiful coastal route up through forests, down to through villages, and we had a great team of 8 clients from all over the world. A lady from Guam, one from Boston, two from the UK, an
Hmm.
Emirati couple. So really multinational team with many, many different experiences. So I celebrated my 63rd birthday in Antalya, in the old town, after walking 96 kilometers. So I could definitely have my cake and eat it with an
Right.
interesting group of people. Yes, yeah.
Yeah, and I'm just looking at all of these different structures here. Um,
Mm.
all of this here in Istanbul,
Yes,
Turkey.
yeah, yeah. Istanbul is a very, very lively city. We had 2 days in Istanbul, looking through mosques, museums, uh, the Grand Bazaar, which is an experience in itself, the spice market.
Yeah.
We obviously all enjoyed lots of Turkish delight, which is a national sweet.
Yeah, yeah.
And then flew to Dalaman for the start of the trail, staying in different places. It was a really beautiful journey. We actually, on the third day, we had a little bit of a storm that came over from Greece, so we had to just hold our ground a little bit and set
Yeah,
off a
yeah.
little bit later. But we had a great guide, and that makes all the difference. And look at that stunning scenery that you're pulling up. So much green and
Yes.
blue. Really, really good energy booster. Yeah.
Oh, I'm sure. Yeah, and I'm just looking at how there we see a little fire pit there. And I'm just looking at how happy all the people look, when you explore into new territory, and it kind of opens you up, which was actually one of my going to be one of my questions, but I can actually pose it to you now. Uh, what is it like to first be at these altitudes of, like you say, 4,000 meters? I've saw that. I guess the highest one is like 7,000 meters,
Yeah.
which is
Yeah.
in American terms, I guess, about close to 23,000 feet,
Yeah.
in altitude. Um, what is it like to be up so high? Because I've seen people that have been interviewed that have climbed Mount Everest and things of this nature, and they say that when you're up so high, you can literally hear the vibrational sound of the ether. Now, I don't know if that's true for you and your experience. Um, so, can you describe what is it like to be so high, overlooking the entire planet?
Yeah, I think, when climbing mountains or being in nature, period, just takes you into a different, an altered state. You become much more sensory aware, in terms of what you're seeing, hearing, feeling, smelling, tasting, because you don't have the usual distractions of traffic, of, phones and everything. You're just really in this zone. It's just you, your breath, and the nature around you.
Yeah.
So I think you just really get into this beautiful zone where you're so responsive to everything. Every step you take, every breath you take, every
Hmm.
move you make. It sounds like the start of the song by Police, is that every step you take, every breath you make.
Yeah, yeah,
That you
yeah.
just become more conscious of your body, your breathing, and your connection, to your higher self. To standing on top of Kota Kinabalu, for example, you could see the whole of South China.
Hmm.
So you see things from a different perspective from what you see at ground level.
Yeah.
And, having trained for this, then your body, you've trained for the altitude. Your body adapts if you've actually taken the trip slowly, not running up the mountain. When we do Kilimanjaro, it's pole pole, which means slowly, slowly.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
not a race. So it's really about being very present and at one with your body and knowing what it's capable of, and then knowing when you need to take a break. And it's just this, it's this like a walking meditation, really. It's this emptiness, because generally speaking, you're just thinking about the mountain and you and your breath and the next step. That's what I found anyway. I'm not thinking about what happened yesterday, what happened day before. I need to send this email. I need that project. It's just really I'm being in nature, and I think that's a beautiful thing. It actually just really grounds us and takes us into that presence.
Yeah. And just to expand, people, because when I traveled to Mexico City, it kind of opened me up
Yes,
to it, because you talk about how international travel, it expands the lens. It
yes,
expands the lens and expands how we perceive uh, other people and their environment, and it gives us a better understanding of how people communicate in their respective countries,
exactly.
you
Yes.
know, and how, I guess it adds to the vibration, if you will, because you're getting some of that new energy, and it attaches to you forever,
Yeah,
forever.
it's very true, Ken. And we actually realize that there are many more things that unite us than divide us. We might be from different backgrounds, different nationalities, different ages, different traditions and beliefs, but at the end of the day, we all want to be happy, healthy. Give kids a good life. Respect nature.
Yeah.
Have all these beautiful experiences. So sometimes, even if you don't speak the same language, just the smile. Or hand movements, and you go, "Ah, yes, I get it." I mean,
Yeah.
it's
Yeah.
always
Yeah.
lovely to learn a few words when you go to a new country. I think if you can say hello, how are you? Where's the bathroom? That's a useful one.
Yeah.
How much is that?
Right. Right.
And it's a two-way thing. When we were in Turkey, for example, we visited people in their homes, and we had like a homemade lunch with a beautiful family. And we had a great guide that was kind of the intermediary between us. And we were asking lots of different questions, about their life and how it compared to life in Istanbul, compared to life in the villages, and that they were so detached from the city, but they had this beautiful life in nature, and really
Mm.
had, how they grew a lot of their own fruits and vegetables, how they had chickens, how they, really, it was farm to table. It was just beautiful, to see that lifestyle.
Yeah. 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 It is different, and it gives people just a different perspective just on life in general,
Yes,
because the world is bigger than the town that you grew up in.
definitely.
And we get to kind of see an expansion, and it does open you up. It does expand the lens like a camera. You could see things in a totally different way, versus what you would just being kind of isolated in your hometown. you
In
know
this one, we've always done it this way. We always go here, here, and here. So you're
right.
almost operating on autopilot. And the
Yeah.
minute that you travel and go somewhere different, it's like, where is this? How do I get there? You become more neurally alive, and then you'll find things that really resonate with you. And you think, oh, I'm going to adapt that practice when I get back home, or I'm going to take a part of this back with me, whether it's through a carpet, a painting, one of their local delicacies that you actually, again, as you say, you expand your lens, you come back a different version of yourself,
Right.
because you actually had all of these experiences as kind of touch points. I remember when, and
Yeah.
how I felt, and, it's just beautiful. I think, for kids to be able to travel, as part of their education, it's super important to have an idea of their place in the world, and that we are, connected by the mountains, the oceans, and the deserts, that we're all interconnected as part of this beautiful ecosystem. So I think, when people say, what would you like for your birthday or Christmas? An airline ticket, I mean, I like experiences, and I think to install that, planting those seeds in children by gifting them a globe, by talking about different countries and how people live. It's so important. Yeah.
It is important, which is why I have my globe right here.
I see that. Yeah.
Always kind of looking and, just kind of envisioning the next place I'd like to go, and just kind of looking at different pictures. And, in an internet age, you can pretty much look up anywhere at this point, and you can know where you're going before you get there and kind of have an idea.
That's the thing. Yeah. I mean, when I led my first expedition to Everest Base Camp in 2003, I took a regular SLR camera and I took rolls of film, 16 rolls of film. 2 weeks later, I came back, took them to the developer store, got them, and then made them into slides. So it was a long time before people saw any of that experience. Now you go with your phone, Instagram, and within seconds, people know where you are, what you're doing, they're hearing, they're seeing you. I mean, it's incredible now. I mean, when I first started my expedition company, there was no such thing as WhatsApp or Instagram or Google Maps or anything. You literally had to look at a map and say how we're going. So it's just made everything more accessible. You can even actually have a virtual tour of any hotel that you're going to stay in or any experience you're going to have before you've even had it, and people say, then the surprise element maybe is not there, that we don't have to think too much. It's all done for us. We just have to show up instead of planning and making strategies, etc. So
I'm from the era of the old school Thomas guide. Where you had to literally turn the page and really look at the map and find out where you're going. Because again, we didn't have the GPS, so you literally had to open the book and look for where you're going.
When you look at how technology has impacted travel, I mean, it's impacted everything, but having influencers, that say, come to this place, that you can find out about places way before, rather than just turning up and then thinking, maybe we didn't choose the right hotel. So it takes a lot of some of the headaches out, but it takes quite a bit of the adventure out as well.
So let's go into this, and we're going to talk about your book as well, because you created the first expedition company in your region where you are right now, because you're in Dubai, correct?
Yes, that's right.
You're in Dubai. Okay, so you created the first expedition company, first woman to do so in your region. And you talk a lot about being resilient in the process. Resilience is one of your big terms. So, and you call it the art and science of resilience. So, what is the art and science of resilience, and what makes resilience such the art and science?
Yes, that's a great question, and many years ago, people just kept saying to me, Julie, you're so resilient, because of the experiences that I had or things that I used to try out. And I thought, I wonder what this actually means. Is it a good thing to be resilient? So I kind of looked a little bit, did some research, and then studied with a group of business psychologists in London called Nichols and McBride, that had actually done around 90,000 tests with different people in stress, high stress jobs, to see if you could actually measure resilience and quantify it. So they identified kind of 5 elements of resilience, and that was optimism, focusing on solutions, accountability, openness and flexibility, and managing stress and anxiety. And when you think about it, if you wake up in the morning and say, it's another great day, I'm still breathing, let's go for it, compared to, oh, it's another day and it's raining, you know. So
All right.
optimism is part of being resilient. So that's pragmatic optimism, that things might be really tough right now, but you know, a lovely quote from the Best Exotic Marigold Hotel movie: everything will be all right in the end, and if it's not all right, it's not the
It's not
end.
the end. That's right.
And at the end, so, you know, resilience is actually being calm, focused, optimistic, managing your stress, focusing on solutions instead of being, you know, worried about the situation, um, and being and looking at different ways. You know, there are 9 different routes up Kilimanjaro. So if one is not possible, you've got 8 other routes to go by. So that's finding a way. And resilience, basically, we develop it from a very early age. If you think when you're a toddler and you're learning how to walk, how
Yeah,
many times you fall down
that's
before
right.
you kind of crush it.
Yeah,
And it's hundreds of times, and parents are saying, come on, come on, come on, you can do this. Nobody says, oh, you've fallen down 10 times, forget it, you can't do it. Otherwise, we'd still all be crawling around.
that's
So
right.
it's installed at a very early age. And the more experiences that we have, whether they're good experiences, not so good experiences, heartbreaking or downright ugly, the more experiences we have, the more resilient we become. And the more resilient we become, the more we can manage stress. And so for me, resilience is not just pushing, pushing, pushing. It's actually knowing when to stop and take a break, reset, make sure I've got, you know, the right solutions and I've got my options, and then moving forward. So it's this ability, I would say, to bounce forward from setbacks and disappointments. People talk about bouncing back, but
Yeah.
we're not going backwards. You know, I say we're going forward,
Right, right,
higher
right.
and stronger, with this as a touch point that, okay, we tried this way, it didn't work out, so we're going to try something else. So that's the resilience factor, and it's a science because you can measure it, your resilience quotient, and the art is just that, you know, the art of being human. I mean, I'm sure if we ask your listeners live now, how many people have failed a driving test, how many people have failed an exam, how many people have lost somebody that they loved, how many people have made a bad decision. All of these things are universal life experiences that kind of grow and expand our character, and you know, we rise to them or we fall apart to them. So you know, that ability to make sense and meaning of all these experiences, instead of saying why me, is to say what did I learn from this, what could I do differently, who can help me. You know, resilience isn't about going it alone. It's about standing alone sometimes, if you're in the minority of one, standing by your beliefs. But as a leader, you know, and in relationships, it's actually saying, hey, I need some help. You know, even
Yeah,
on a mountain, we have a code: throw me some rope. And that means I need some help, you know.
yeah.
I think it was Simon Sinek said, had a code like, have you got 8 minutes? Which means that, you know, you needed to talk to somebody, and apparently within 8 minutes, having the right conversation can really flip somebody's mindset into kind of victim, into master. So it's interesting, um, you know, and when we look at resilience in, you know, physical, mental, spiritual, emotional, financial resilience, social resilience, you know, in terms of having a strong network, community is huge. You know, that when we hit rock bottom, who can we kind of say, hey, I need some help, you know, whether that's friends, family, or your sports groups. But I think, you know, this essence of a community and connection, and knowing that sometimes you have to stand your ground and be the you know, the minority of one, but generally speaking, you know, to have resources and to ask for help, to find a way. And water does that.
Yeah,
Water
yeah,
opens
yeah.
the way.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, and actually I'm gonna get to water when we start talking about your book, because
Sure.
yeah, it kind of goes into depth on many different ways of water.
Yes.
Um, Now you talk about embracing the highs and the lows and the plateaus, um, which you kind of touched on a little bit, but uh, and how some people don't really embrace the highs, the lows, and the plateaus because of certain fear factors. How do you define the highs, the lows, and the plateaus, and why so many people don't embrace them and not move, like you say, bounce forward?
Mm. Yeah. I think we all have moments where we're like, it's so exciting. You just signed a book deal, you've just run your first marathon, you've just had your first child, you've just got, these are the kind of high moments. But then they dissipate. Nobody's 100%, yeah, all the
Yeah,
time.
right,
And
right, right.
nobody's 100% all of the time. There's these micro moments.
Yeah.
And, through positive psychology studies, it says that we need 5 positive emotions for every 1 neutral or negative emotion. So it's really about who you spend your time with, what you're doing, what's happening, and how you cope with what's happening in your life. So the low moments, could be anything from losing somebody that you love, and that's, grief is the price that we pay for love. So you're not just going to say, oh, somebody died, oh, just get on with it. No, I'm not saying that. That grief is something real, and it takes time, and it takes support.
Yeah.
So that's the highs and the lows. Feeling so alive, and maybe being diagnosed with a critical illness, or losing a parent or a child or a spouse. So that's a real, you could be knocked off your metaphorical mountain of happiness and joy very quickly when things like that happen.
Yeah.
And I describe the plateaus as really the steady in your comfort zone. There's no big highs, there's no big lows. You're just kind of plodding along. Everything's really comfortable. But human nature, we crave excitement and drive, and then when we get too much of it, we say, oh, I just want everything to be calm and peaceful again. After the lockdown years, we just want things to go back to normal. Well, it was a new normal. So sometimes, it's just human nature that we say we want one thing, but after a while we say, well, actually, I want more variety. We just say, I don't want to travel. And then all of a sudden, I don't want to stay at home. I don't want to stay in this town. It's just, we crave new experiences. And I think, the goal is for it to kind of flow. I mean, even our heart rate goes up and then it drops down. It goes up and drops down. And when it flatlines, we're dead. That's, we're in this Groundhog Day. So I think really that ability to recognize that I'm feeling very flat. Everything's nothing's wrong, but there's something not quite right. And so you take a new way to work, or you try a new restaurant, or you learn a new language, or you do something a little bit out of your comfort zone to just get that beep again.
Yeah. Right. Just to get a little boost of energy, just a little bit to kind of, just kind of take you along for the ride, and then you kind of build it from there. So, and you're right, the pandemic really kind of put a roadblock on a lot of people, individually and collectively, with families. A lot of people, lost their either their jobs or their businesses. Many people just kind of lost their kind of value of leadership, so to speak. And you speak about leadership quite a bit. You talk about strength-based leadership, resilience, and something called Zen leadership. So can you kind of differentiate the differences in the types of leadership and how we can kind of combine them all to become the ultimate leader?
Yeah, I think, leadership is about self-awareness, know thyself, as Socrates said, so the strength-based leadership is really about, what are my strengths? There's a character strengths program, and it's 24 different positive personality traits. You answer around 240 questions, truthfully, not the ones that you think, oh, I should really answer this. It's like, exactly. And then you come up with your top 5 strengths, which are a sign of your nature, your signature strengths. So that's your dominant, your natural force. And I
Mm-hmm.
mean, they're all positive, so there's no bad about it, but it just
Yeah.
means that in some things. So if you know, for example, my top signature strength is love of learning. Because if somebody says, "Oh, we need to do this," and I don't know how to do it, I say, "Great, I'm going to learn something new," and I go and learn it. You know, whereas somebody else might just say, "Oh, I'm not going to do that because I don't like learning new things." It's very rare, but I mean, you know, sense of humor, zest, patience, courage, wisdom. So it's actually, you know, the more you know yourself, the easier it is to understand yourself. And is that your, you know, that people talk about the light and the dark, the up and the down, the black and white, the yin and yang, the dark and the shadow, you know, of yourself.
Yeah.
So I
Yeah.
think, you know, when this happens, I normally do this, you know, your emotional intelligence. So for me, knowing your strengths and knowing your values, you know, what's important to you is super important. The Zen leadership was something that I was very drawn to many years ago, having read a book by the same title by Dr. Ginny Whitelaw, and I attended two of her programs in Wisconsin in a dojo. So we were actually, you know, 55 minutes every morning, seated meditation, zazen, you know, really, really in the zone, and then really looking at the middle way. And I think Zen is really about that. You know, the proverb, something as simple as move and the way will open. You know, when we're feeling stuck, if you hear that move and the way will open, you'll be more likely to take a step forward. Wherever you are, there you are. You know, we always sometimes think that if, you know, if I go there, then I'll feel different. But often you're taking the feelings with you. So again, it's coming back to who am I? What am I doing? Who am I with? And where am I? And just asking these key questions. And how can I lead by example by taking care of my health,
Mm-hmm.
my mental, physical, emotional, spiritual health, so that you can lead by example, basically. And I think it's important that role models and that people, that effective leaders now are definitely more conscious, they're more aware, they're not the command and control scenario. I'd like to think not.
Yeah. Yeah.
I know sometimes that is required, you know, do this right now. But I think, you know, I tend to be a lot more Socratic in terms of, hey guys, this is the situation. Let's focus on solutions,
Yeah.
so that everybody's had a say and everybody's got a buy-in. So I think 21st century leaders are very conscious, are very aware, and are socially intelligent. You know, they read other people's, what motivates people, what drives people, what, you know, how do people feel, how can we impact the way that people think, act, and feel as a result of what we say and how we nurture and nourish them to allow them to grow. So I don't think there's a one-stop answer to leadership. I think,
Yeah.
you know, there's different modalities of learning, which is why it's a never-ending learning. It's a lifelong journey, isn't it, really? Because there's always some new leadership themes, new leadership frameworks.
Yeah.
But I think it's being able to look in the mirror and say, am I being the best version of myself? Am I leading by example? Am I being a role model? Or do people see me burning the candles at both ends, in at the office it's 7 in the morning and out at 8, 9 o'clock, and nobody can leave until I leave, and I'm burnt out, I'm yelling at everybody. I mean, I just think that could almost be like comic book style these days. You know, that's long
Yeah.
gone.
Yeah.
We hope. Yes.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, and there's many ways of leadership as long as we do become more self-aware
Mm.
to where we can lead ourselves first and master that. then
Exactly.
and then we can be better leaders for others when they need some form of leadership to help them again, come along for the ride, because
Yeah.
we're all in this together to varying degrees. But yeah, self leadership first, learning how to lead yourself on the best path. And even if you do make errors, like you said earlier,
We're
what have
human.
what yeah, we're human, so what have we learned from the experience versus taking the mistake so personal? Just look at it as, it's like a mistake, just like acting. If you mess up, you do it over.
Yes, exactly. Just put your hands up. Hey guys, I made a huge error, and this is what we're going to do to put things back on track. So I think that vulnerability, the Brené Brown moment of daring greatly and actually showing that I'm human. I'm not this machine that always, 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 always gets it right.
Yeah,
Occasionally there's a
yeah,
glitch in the hard drive, and we need to
yeah,
just come
yeah,
on, guys,
yeah.
help me, throw me some rope. Yeah,
Right. Yeah, because trying to be perfect can become stressful. You know,
very. Yeah, yeah.
some people say that they're perfectionists, but at the same time, they're so stressed trying to be perfect, not only for themselves, but for others, to please the people
Exactly.
pleasers, you
Yeah.
know, and then they stumble along the way anyway, trying to be perfect. Um,
Yeah.
so we need to kind of take ourselves a little lightly, care, but not that much, you know. Um,
Yeah, I think, it's the perfectionism, procrastination that
yeah,
really are the enemies of success. If we wait till everything's just perfect to do
right.
something, then maybe somebody's already done it. You just get started, and that's, the Zen move and the way will open. What's the first step? What's
Yeah,
the first step? Instead of thinking, oh, we can't, we can't, we can't, we're not ready, we don't have everything ready. It's just like, get the basics in place, take the first step, and it's like a rolling boulder gathering momentum. You've got to let it go,
yeah,
otherwise it just stays stuck.
yeah. Yeah, that's right. And a lot of people do stay stuck for those reasons. Procrastination is huge.
Mm.
I've been there
We've
myself.
all been there.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. We've all
Ask
been
any
there. Yeah,
writer.
yeah. It's just kind of a universal thing. But again, it's about how we learn about ourselves and who we are as, human beings, spirit beings, light beings,
Yes.
whatever depth you want to take it. We're all here to have the learning experience. Um, I'm going to play this clip and then we're going to get into your book. This clip here, you may have seen it before, but it kind of segues into into your book. This is a clip from the late great Bruce Lee here,
Oh,
and
yes.
you may have seen this before. I'm just going to play this real quick here, so I want everyone to listen to this.
But you read, there were some lines that expressed your philosophy. I don't know if you remember them or not.
Oh, I remember that. I
Let's
said,
hear.
this is what it is, okay?
You're talking to Longstreet, played by James Francesca.
I said, empty your mind. Be formless, shapeless, like water. Now, you put water into a cup, it becomes the cup. You put water into a bottle, it becomes the bottle. You put it in a teapot, it becomes the teapot. Now, water can flow, or it can crash. Be water, my friend. Like that, you see?
Oh, I see. I get the idea.
Look at that smile. Be welcome.
Yes. So that
Simple.
yes, become water. And so Bruce Lee, just kind of segued, the late great Bruce Lee, the great master that he was. And your book here, called Uncharted Waters, Discover Your Hidden Depths. What made you come up with the name Uncharted Waters, and explain that, and what are the uncharted waters?
It's a super question. Uncharted Waters is the sequel, the big sister to my first book, Moving Mountains, Discover the Mountain in You.
Okay.
And 7 years ago now, Kenan, I attempted to swim from England to France,
Mm-hmm.
which is around 33 kilometers across one of the busiest shipping lines in the world. And the water is not so clean, and
Yeah, yeah,
two
yeah.
out of three people don't make it. And what I learned from that experience, because I didn't make it to France, I joke, I say, I'm going to take the ferry next time, it's much quicker.
Right.
That water is very soft, but it's also very strong.
Yeah.
That it gives life to everything, but it can also destroy life. You know, we've all seen floods and tsunamis and everything. And so the kind of analogy of uncharted waters is like being in at the deep end. And I was definitely in at the deep end because, you know, it takes a lot to swim from England to France. So I was out of my comfort zone, that's for sure. But that's when you discover, you know, your strengths, your areas of development. I prefer to say area of development, not weakness. And so it made me think more about water. You know, there's a lovely quote by Lao Tzu: stand like mountain, flow like water. And there are times in our life when we do need to stand strong and weather the storms. And there's many more times where we have to just let go and be like the river with the twig floating on top that's just going carried out towards the ocean. So going into the unknown, metaphorically, uncharted water means new terrains, you know, moving to a new country, getting into a new relationship, feeling a little bit out of sorts and a little bit, you know, I'm not sure about this. And actually finding a way and becoming like water and discovering strengths and skills and characteristics about yourself that you would never have discovered if you'd just been going from home to work, from home to the mall and home to the regular restaurants and things. So it's about going out into the unknown. It's a bit like the hero's journey or rites of passage, you know, or this liminal space where you leave everything that you know, like follow the yellow brick road, and you meet your mentors and your guides and everything, and you have obstacles and challenges and how you overcome them. And then you come back full circle as this new version of yourself, having gone through those uncharted waters or territories or terrains. So it's really about discovering yourself at a much deeper level. You know, when we are 70% water, so it's really about going into your internal waters. You know, how are your internal waters? And the planet is 70% water. So when every time we look at water, we're actually looking at ourselves, you know. And when you think, you know, your first ocean was your maternal ocean, you know, in your mother's womb, and the waters break, and then how you come into this beautiful world from this water world that we were homed in for 9 months. So the element of water is really very much in our nature. And I did a lot of research and connected with a beautiful soul called Dr. Wallace J. Nichols, who's now the late Dr. Wallace J. Nichols, that wrote a book called Blue Mind, which is the neuroscience of what happens when you're in, on, around, or underwater, compared to a red mind, which is a stressed beta mind, and a gray mind, which is burnt out, frazzled. So that concept of blue mind and blue spaces and what happens to your central nervous system and the parasympathetic system when you're in water. Now, some people have a fear of water, so maybe they don't have the blue mind. But generally speaking, just looking at water, hearing the sound of water. And so the whole book, Uncharted Waters, was really about water as an elixir of life, because no water, no life. The healing benefits, and then the lessons from water, you know, in business and life and relationships, and the importance even of our words. You know, Dr. Masaru Emoto research by saying, I love you, or thank you, you know, perfect crystals, instead of saying you're stupid, I hate you, angry, and then it's misformed. So if that happens to water crystals when we speak, just think of what happens if you're having negative talk to your mind, to your internal waters. So really it's about, you know, the book was aimed at encouraging people, inviting people to love and respect water, because we drink it, we shower in it, we wash, we cook, we clean with it. It gives life to everything. We take it for granted. It's like the air that we breathe. You know, when people say, what are the two things that you can't live without? And I say, air and water.
Right.
Then chocolate, maybe.
I'll take that one. I'll take
Yeah,
that one.
so I think, having respect for water and, taking care of water so it can take care of us, because we all just tip on, turn on the shower, turn on the tap, and we just expect water to come. The day that it doesn't is the day that we know that we've just taken advantage of the planet and we've not been good guardians,
Yeah.
And water scarcity, for me, definitely water is going to be, it already is, one of the currencies, that, some people are very water stressed and don't have access to clean water. So, yeah, it came from different angles, about the elixir of life, the lessons we can learn from water, the taking care of water, the story of attempting to swim the channel, or, the the storm, like the tsunami is a metaphor for a rogue wave, the storm. And I think one of the quotes was, not all storms come to disrupt your path, some come to clear it.
Yeah.
So there's stories about when people have had, their businesses wiped out or something, then they've had to be resourceful and find another way. And that's life, that is the way of water. You become it, you become the teapot. It takes the shape, the form of
Right.
what it is, and water can't be contained. If it's in a pipe and it's frozen, it will freeze and it will burst the pipe. It
Yeah.
cannot be contained. It will always find the tiniest little nook or crack and
That's
start
right.
seeping through.
That's right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Water is that damn powerful.
It
I mean,
is. It is.
and I'm glad you mentioned the blue mind. I was going to ask you about that, the difference between the blue mind and the red mind, but you just kind of covered it right now. And I've talked about Dr. Masaru Emoto a few times on this show in the past. I learned about his work maybe 15 years ago. He was in a documentary called What the Bleep Do We Know?
Yeah.
And, I thought it was really fascinating how powerful water is and how the molecular structure can be altered by thoughts. By thoughts.
Definitely.
Whether
Yes.
they're positive or not so positive. And just like the snowflakes have a trillion different shapes, as what you just described, when Dr. Emoto put these thoughts into water and then froze it, you can literally see how the thought literally takes a specific shape
Yeah.
according to its vibration or intention.
Yeah.
And then if you say something that might be of malice or malicious, I hate you, I hate your guts, I can't stand you, that takes on a certain structure within the water. It may not be as perfected or in shape as the positive thought, but nonetheless, it takes on a shape.
Yep.
And it can be measured. So
Yeah.
water is that powerful, and water can be altered through our thoughts, which leads me to I'm going to pull this up here. And again, all of this is from either your website or from your book. And I saw this here. So I'm just going to pull this up. And you talk about, so I saw this, exploring waters, wisdom. So if you could be any form of water, what would you be? Either a waterfall of courage and trust, a river of resilience and intuition, or a lake of stillness and reflection. So can you describe the three and how we can use them to our advantage?
Sure. That really was the kind of first entry to the book, to say, one of the things was, if water could speak, what would it say to you? But then if you could be any form of water, what would you be? So I attributed, I looked at waterfalls, of experienced waterfalls, and I thought, wow, they're just so courageous. They're going over the edge. They just trust that they're going to land.
Right.
So when in my life have I had to be a waterfall, whether I liked it or not, I had to have that courage and have that trust. And so the river kind of analogy was about that resilience, because whatever's going on ahead or below or behind at the side, the river still keeps flowing and it's going to go to the ocean. It just intuitively knows that it can't reverse, it's just going to keep going, and it intuitively adapts to the landscape.
Yeah.
In terms of the lake canyon, it was really that whenever I see lakes, I think they're like huge eyes, because they reflect everything. They reflect the sky, they reflect the trees, everything around it. And when you sit by a lake that's still, you can see your own reflection. So it's about that becoming still and silent and observing and reflection. So there were just 3 kind of examples of, different types of water and what kind of traits or characteristics I could see in them. So other things were like an iceberg, and for me, an iceberg is presence. It's very solid. It's just there, and you don't know what's going on underneath. There's so much more underneath.
Right.
The snowflake, which you mentioned, every snowflake is completely different. So that concept of individuality, that our fingerprint, that there's only one you, there's only one.
Right.
There's
That's right.
only one really. So that individuality. A puddle was playfulness. As kids, we would run and jump in a puddle and make a splash. And as adults, we kind of, there's a puddle, and we kind of divert from it. So we've, coming back to playfulness, a stream of consciousness. So it was really looking at different types and bodies of water and saying, what are their characteristics? What are their traits? What do they symbolize? And how could that help me in my life or in my business? Am I having an iceberg moment, where I have to be very present and nobody knows what's going on to keep me kind of afloat? Am I what's the word? That you allow your uniqueness to shine through, that you don't always wear the same colors because everybody else is wearing black or blue or green, that you wear the bright pop pinks, you wear feathers in your hair. You're actually expressing your individuality, rather than kind of hiding it. I think we can learn a lot from water just by looking at it. The ocean was an ocean of emotions that, the waves go out, they come back in. We have high emotions, we have low emotions. So, the ebb and flow of life as such. I think it was really more of a thought-provoking book than my first book, which was Moving Mountains, Discover the Mountain in You.
Yeah, I saw that.
This Uncharted Waters was really inviting people to dive deeper into water through the journal prompts, through the quotes from different people, Bruce Lee, Lao Tzu, Rumi, Khalil Gibran, Alan Watts, all of these people that have thought about water through the centuries, to just actually make us think a little bit more consciously about water.
Yeah. And you're giving, like you say, you're giving nature a voice, and also giving water a voice. You made water into an acronym: wisdom, activation, transformation, energy, and resilience. And I thought that was pretty cool how you kind of broke that down into those 5 categories. And also, just for the sake of fundamentals, I'm going to go into your book, because again, I saw some things that I thought were really pretty good here. Fundamentally, so we're going to go into chapter 1 here, and talk about how we need water too. And then I went right here, and so we need water, just some fundamentals here. And I thought this was great, and how much we do take water for granted, and we don't even really think about these kind of traits that water does for us. And right here, forms saliva for digestion, allow body cells to grow, reproduce, and survive, flush out body waste, and mainly in the urine. Most people don't drink enough water, so we kind of get backed up, and sometimes for days and days at a time. Water lubricates the joints, helps the brain manufacture hormones and neurotransmitters, regulate body temperature through our sweat and perspiration, act as a shock absorber for the brain and the spinal cord, because the brain is housed in water. It's kind of housed in water. Convert food needed for survival through digestion and helps deliver oxygen through the body. These are all fundamentals that we kind of take for granted. Talk about how the body, or talk about how great water is for the body, especially at a cellular level and for the brain as well.
Yeah, I think it's just, as I quote it as the elixir of life, that it's part of the ecosystem. It's our internal rivers, our internal waters that really accommodate, facilitate so many different functions at a cellular level, and brain function. Often people say, "Oh, I'm tired," and generally speaking, is that they're dehydrated. Or people say, "I'm hungry," and they're actually not hungry, they're thirsty. So I think, that's being more aware of that we need water, because it's not just to quench our thirst. It's for all these bodily functions, I think I'd also include in that chapter that you can eat your water, through watermelon, cucumber, and celery, and through herbal teas and everything. So you can take it in different forms, and there's so many different now: alkaline water, hydrogenated water, structured water. It's mind-boggling. But at the end of the day, we need water, and water needs us.
Right. Yeah. And water needs us. You're right.
Yes,
yeah. Water does need us, and we need water. Fundamentally, just based on your experience with water, because I'm going to go to chapter 3 next, with coping strategies, but just in general, how powerful is water, and why is it so significant?
I think purely because it just gives life to everything. If plants don't get water, they wither and die. If we don't drink water, we wither and die. It's just part of this ecosystem that without water, without air, they're two non-negotiables for us. That it just nothing works. If you look at the oceans, the rivers, the water in any and all forms, even just running through your pipes in your home, that the minute if somebody just turned that off, then it's gone. We cannot live without water, just as we cannot live without air. So it's important. It's the driving force of many different systems as well, steam powered and hydrogen plants, etc. So I think people don't really think about it that much. But they would the minute that it's not there.
Right. When it's missing, then that's when we miss it the most.
Yeah. For even just for rain, if you're in a dry, arid country and you're praying for rain, and then you get too much rain, that's a fine line, isn't there? Of having floods and having snow melt from the mountains that feeds the rivers, that feeds everything else. It's just not us as human beings, it's wildlife, it's every single being, our four-legged and two-legged furry friends, it's just everybody.
Yeah. And I'm going to move here to chapter 3. You talked about of some coping skills. So I'm just going to close up on here. And you mentioned about tossing the rope, asking for help,
Yes.
asking for help, taking regular breaks, and these are some things that we can do just to help ourselves. Eating nutrient dense food, which is a big one. You just mentioned about how we can eat our water
Yes.
through watermelon and cucumbers, which are all water dense.
Yes.
Celery as well. Um, you've had to train you've had to train your body to go on these expeditions. How important is eating a nutrient dense diet?
Very, very. It's the fuel that you put in the engine, really. The balance of slow release carbohydrates, so you're not having sugar spikes. The fats, the proteins. It just fuels your performance. Basically, there's a lot. In sports nutrition, it depends what you're doing, whether you're doing endurance or sprints. But I think for me, it's important to fuel for performance and really know what you're eating and making sure that you're putting good food in the engine. You wouldn't put crappy petrol in your car. So your body
Right.
is like your car, basically. It's
Yeah,
your vehicle.
it
So for
is.
me, it's very, very important.
Yeah.
And this list that you're referring to here in chapter 3 is just, they are, coping strategies. And these are all simple things to do. They're not super expensive things as well, because people often associate that, to take care of your health, it's expensive. But, sitting by a river or by a lake, or, taking a cold shower, or going for a walk, asking for help, getting some sunlight, walking barefoot, for grounding, phoning a friend. A lot of these are actually free if we just actually are grounded and focused enough to think that. So this
Yes.
really list is just to help people, because people would probably read it and think, oh yeah, I can do that. I can make sure I balance my solitude with social connection. I like
Right.
listening to music. I like reading. Getting out of your mind by dancing and moving your body. If you feel stuck, get up and move.
Hmm.
Change what you're looking at. Change the conversations that you have. Change the people around you. Nobody wants to hang out with people, what I call the ain't it awful club, that actually, bitch, moan, and whine about everything, and you just
Yeah, 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 yeah. Right,
so
right.
you need people that bring you joy and give you energy, and have interesting, lively conversations. So these are all kind of coping strategies.
Yeah,
Um, and obviously, for me, it's spending time in nature. And where I live, I look out of the window and I'm looking at the sea. For me,
yeah.
that's eye candy. It's just really, it's
Absolutely.
soul food. It's soul food. Yeah.
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 Yeah. And here you have comic relief, which is always
Mm,
great to kind of
yes.
laugh at yourself and not take life
Yeah.
so serious. One thing I've noticed about water, when I've I've gone out to, because I'm here in Los Angeles, so I'm coastal, so
Yes.
I'm pretty close to the water. I've gone, and I'm a fitness person, so when I'm on my when I'm on my treadmill, I have it at maybe a 15-degree angle, so I'm always going uphill to
Yes.
kind of challenge myself. One thing I've noticed is when I go to the beach to run, I notice that the energy changes.
Mm,
I noticed that I can go a lot further with my cardiovascular, because the energy of the water, the energy of the ocean,
yes.
the energy of the sand, just the energy of just being in that space, it adds energy to you. And then I can go a lot further jogging on the water in the sand versus being on concrete.
Yes. Yeah.
I noticed that a few years ago, I was like, wow, I've never ran this far, you know. but but just being well, that's it just proves to me how powerful the energy of water is
Mm,
as an energy source. because water is an energy source.
It
Um,
truly is.
you
Yeah.
know, so when I run on the side, when I run along the ocean, it literally gives that extra boost of energy by default,
Yeah.
just because of where I am in proximity of myself and the water, and having my bare feet, grounded in the sand,
Yeah.
having that
Very,
energy,
very powerful.
having that energy rise within the body, and I thought that was pretty fascinating
It is.
to notice that.
Yeah.
Um, and I'm pretty sure being in certain altitudes, you have to be able to take in a certain level of oxygen, because as you go higher in altitude, the air quality changes.
Yes.
So you literally have to train. What is the training regimen that you would have to go through to actually, because it's not for everyone, you know?
No, no. I mean, basically, cardiovascular work is a a must, and core and your strength. You never really know how you're going to respond to the altitude. I
Yeah.
mean, basically, the key is that you take, you don't gain more than 1,000 meters, for example. That you kind of climb high and sleep low, because that gives your body the time to adapt to the less oxygen in the air. So if you're pushing it too fast and
Yeah.
not having that climb high, sleep low kind of thing, or basically having acclimatization days. When we did our space camp, you started off at 1,800 meters, and we did, when you get to 3,200 meters at 10,000 feet, that's when altitude can start to impact. So it's just a matter of saying, okay, we stay here, we do a hike up 400, 500 meters, and we come back down here. So you're giving your body time to respond. And this is a good thing about being in nature. If you're in an air-conditioned or heated room, it's just flat. You're out in the ocean. You've got the energy of the ocean. You've got the negative ions here. You've got the coastal flow. I mean, and compared to the air in the mountains. So both, the altitude and the sea level, your body's adapting to it. And for example, you mentioned about how powerful you feel and how much longer you lasted running by the coast,
Yeah.
because of that, the negative ions, because it's so invigorating, that just the smells, I mean, I get salty lips sometimes when I jog on the beach, because you get the sea spray. But
Right.
people who live by the coast, generally speaking, are more active, they live longer, and they're healthier, and they're much more sociable, because when you walk on the beach or running on the beach, you tend to, you kind of smile at people. When you're on a mountain climbing up, you're not really looking around and going, "Hey, how you doing today?" So
Yeah.
you're like this. So definitely, the longevity factor, but like coastal living is a big plus, and it brings so much joy. I've never seen anybody at the beach, playing in the ocean or swimming or building sandcastles with a sad face. Maybe if they
Right.
maybe if they have to leave because mom and dad are saying, "Come on, it's time to go home now," and they go, "No,
Right.
no, I want us 5 more minutes."
That's right.
So childhood memories of time by water, whether it was a lake or a river or a stream or a waterfall over the ocean. But
Mhm.
we get a lot of energy from nature, that's for sure, whether you're in a forest and you're breathing in all that beautiful oxygen, because we're giving the trees CO2 and they're giving us oxygen. There's
Right.
phytocyanides in the air, which, have been known. Forest bathing is not woo-woo, it's science. In Japan, if you're sick, they say, go stay in the forest. In Greece, they say, go swim for a sea. In Spain, they go get some sunshine. Nature is our medicine. It's
Yeah.
it's in our nature. We were born to be outdoors, not inside, looking at screens and air-conditioned offices, sat down on our butt all day. You know this because of your fitness background and
Yeah.
interest, that
Yeah.
we were born to move. And if you can be outside, breathing in the air by the sea or running through the forest, barefoot, beautiful. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. And I'm glad you described the different elements, Because I see here you have about comparing, reverence to the mountains and vitality to the ocean, energy with the forest and beauty of the desert.
Yeah.
What is it about nature that many people are missing because some people have never gone out of their element or their neighborhood or, just to go simple camping or hiking, just
Mm.
even if it's locally? What are people missing by not being out in nature in any capacity? Does it start to drain the body eventually? Do we start to lose energy? How are we affected by not going out into nature?
Yeah, that's a great question. And I think during what I call the lockdown years, when, it wasn't possible to do the things that we normally do, that when things opened up again, I think people had more respect for nature. I mean, the camper vans that were, selling out, people wanted to travel because they couldn't take flights or anything, but they were buying the Winnebagos or whatever they're called in the States, where you could, and more people were buying bikes because they just didn't want to sit on crowded buses. They wanted to just, have the freedom of being on a bike, and people saying, I can't wait to get outside. So I think in a strange kind of way that period did make people more aware of nature, the beauty of nature, and how much energy and inspiration and clarity and peace it can bring for us.
Yeah.
For me, spending time indoors, yes, of course we do it, but I take nature breaks. I take micro nature breaks.
Yeah.
To be outside. So I think really to realize that we're not actually apart from nature, we're part of it. We're part of that ecosystem. We need nature for survival and growth and flourishment, and nature needs us to preserve her, to really, really take care of her. And I think, that's a whole new conversation, isn't it, about taking care of the environment and climate change and all the rest of it, what we're doing to the planet, basically. So I think the more people can experience nature, the better, and from a childhood, if you're living in a city and, your nature is the park, go to the park, but it's really, you become the product of your environment. If you have parents that say, whatever, we're going to, go and find a lake, we're going to go and find a park, we're going to go and find something, because, staying indoors is just not an option. I think we shrivel up. For me, energy is like plugging into the universe, to the frequency of nature, to the sights, the sounds. It just literally, is a wake-up call, being out in nature. It's therapy. And, I think it's in Scotland now, they have a nature prescription. They tell people, go for walks, swim in the sea, go hug a tree. It's not woo-woo. I mean, the science shows that when they took stressed out executives, for example, from Tokyo into the forest for 3 days, they took blood panels before they went in and after, increased their natural killer cells by 50%, reduced their cortisol levels, reduced their blood pressure. This works,
Mm-hmm.
It's I would say, I mean, obviously, if you break your arm, you're going to go and see a doctor. But if you're just feeling a little bit out of sorts, low on energy, a little bit low, go out into nature. Look at the beauty that surrounds you, the flowers, the patterns in nature, the wildlife, the animals, the sounds. Just be really, really present with it. And I guarantee you're going to be smiling, or you're going to get an idea, a sign or a symbol from something, to see that natural beauty.
Yeah. And nature is alive, just like we are. And you can literally talk to your plants, and you can, you can stand next to trees, and whether you see it or not is irrelevant. You are having an effect on the tree or the plant, and the plant or the tree is having an effect on you as well.
Yeah.
you know, and again, it might be so subtle you might not feel it in the moment, but it is having an effect on our physical selves,
Definitely. Yeah.
And so right here, you talk about, because you just mentioned it a couple of minutes ago, about the rain and lessons from rain. And I see here rain and the rainbows. So what lessons can we, because when I was young, I used to like, oh, it's raining outside. But now, now that I'm, now that I'm older, now I appreciate the rain a lot more, because I know that uh, it has great significance. It's helps to wash everything away. It helps the vegetation grow and all of these great things. So what lessons can we take from rain?
I think that it's actually just that cleansing and clearing the path. And there's a rainbow, I mean, it's part of the cycle, isn't it? From the clouds, the rain, it might be a puddle, and then it's a lake, and then it's a river, and then it's the ocean.
Yeah.
It could be, the raindrops, on your face whenever it rains, which is very rare in this part of the world. But
Yeah.
whenever
Yeah.
it does, I'll often just go outside and I'll just stand there. I think it was Bob Marley said, some people feel the rain, others just get wet. But to actually feel, that water on your face, to, put your tongue out and
Yeah. And taste the rainwater.
the taste of rainwater, singing
Yeah.
and dancing in the rain. For
Yeah.
me, it's just like washing away. It's breaking. When you've got really kind of closed, muggy weather, it just needs a rain to clear it, basically. It's part of the cycle, and it's just, for me, I love rain, and whether you're in it or you're under an umbrella and you've got your wellies on or something like that. Or when I was a student, Ken, and I used to live in an attic, and it had a dormer window. And when it used to rain, I just used to sit and watch the patterns of the rain and just think, oh, I'm so cozy inside. But then I would put my water mac on and my Wellingtons and go outside, because I just think, to miss that experience would be sad. And I know for some people it's like, oh, we're just staying in for the day, it's raining. I would encourage you to go out and feel the rain.
Right. Feel
Yeah.
the rain. Feel the
Yeah.
raindrops. Feel
Mm.
feel the cleansing of the air.
Yes.
When I see a rainbow after a rain or during a rain, this is how we know when the energy is pure, when you can see the energy of the light spectrum
Yes. Yes.
in the form of a rainbow.
Yeah.
Or if you just take a water hose when the sun is out,
Mm.
and you can just reflect it. It's so simple. And you can see the purity of energy through the water. I mean,
Yes.
this is how you can see, again, all this can be measured. It's not like you say, it's not woo woo. People kind of woo foo all this stuff like it's
Yeah.
not real. But all you have to do is just turn a water hose on and reflect it against the sun. The sun is an energy source.
Yes.
And
For sure.
so the sun, water, they all kind of go hand in hand with helping us to be the vibrant human beings that we are.
Yes. For
Um,
sure.
and so the rain and the rainbows have their significance. And lastly, here, before we begin to wrap up, I'm going to go here. This is from chapter number 9 here. This is from chapter 9, and right here where we say turning your dreams into reality.
Yes.
We talked about people being stuck earlier, and right here, I think this is great. Setting clear goals, believing in yourself, which is huge.
Yeah.
Believing in yourself, take consistent daily action, no matter what it is. Take that concise step forward. Embrace failure, which a lot of people don't want to do. They don't want to embrace their
Mm.
failures. They're afraid to fail, many people. Persistence, being persistent, because persistence pays off. Surround yourself with the right people, which you mentioned a few minutes ago. Visualize success. Visualize success in your mind, because that's where everything starts anyway, in your mind, your vision. Celebrate milestones, as we all have them, no matter how big or how small. Triple your self-care, which we talked about. Why is believing in yourself so important, and why is it so important to embrace our failures?
Great questions. And I think, that whole thing, if you think you can, you can. And if you think you can't, you can't. It becomes a
Yes.
self-fulfilling prophecy. So
Yeah.
I think when you decided what you want and why you want it, that to have that self-belief really, and know that there may be obstacles in the way, and you might have an injury, or you might not get, you might not win the medal the first time round, or even come in the top 10 placings, or whatever it is. So I think it's just important as part of a protocol is that you learn that, sometimes it's not your time, that, embrace failure, to say, okay, what would I do differently next time? When I didn't make it across the English Channel, I was devastated. I cried like a baby because I thought, I'm trained for this, etc. I know I can swim for 10 hours. I've only been in the water 4 hours, kind of thing. But then you just think, come on, Julie, it's better to be disappointed than dead. And that sounds quite extreme. But, when you've had an injury, it's no point pushing it. You just have to sit with it and say, I need to triple my self-care. I need to get physio. I need to kind of let my body heal and rest, and then I can start moving again. And that is big. Yes, of course it's big. If you're an Olympic athlete, you only get one every 4 years. You get a chance at that gold or that silver or that bronze. So that really does take a huge mindset and discipline and dedication to do the things that not many people want to do, even when you don't want to do it. What was that Michael Phelps? Like, what you do in the dark, they'll put you in the light, getting up at the hours of the morning and training, and then eating, and then sleeping, and then training, and eating and sleeping. It takes dedication. And, the way of an athlete, that could probably be a great book, wouldn't it? The way of an athlete is that you have to embrace failure. Sometimes it's like the pause button, and it's not failure. It's really not the outcome that you wanted. So, what do you need to tweak, to change, in your technique? And we all have our off days, however hard we train. If we didn't get a good night's sleep, for example, or we had a difficult conversation, there's things, the mind really is, when I was training for the channel, everybody just said 80% is mental. And I said, okay, and the 20% is that, putting the training in, the fueling, the very, very things. But if you're saying to yourself, I can do this, I'm strong, I'm powerful, I am the ocean, I'm an ocean of energy, you have these mantras. Or if you're saying, I can't do this, I'm tired, it becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy. And, the importance of having people around you, to lift you through your moments and everything, to show you tough love, to say, one more, you're training. It's not like, oh, it's okay, you don't have to do that. We'll do that tomorrow. It's like, no, let's stick to the plan, stick to the program. But then obviously also recognize if you've torn your Achilles tendon, you ain't going to go far. So, it's embracing that and just realizing, okay, I can't do this, but I can do this instead. We can always find something that we can do to keep things moving. So I think that's really important.
And I remember, this is a while back ago. I don't know if you have heard the name before, but he's passed away now. His name was Jack LaLanne. and he was a fitness guru for like 50 some years.
Yeah.
And he swam out here in the LA harbor. I think he was pulling one of the big boats called the Spruce Goose that was built by Howard Hughes back in the 40s and 50s, if I'm not mistaken. And he swam pulling this thing
Wow.
off across the Long Beach harbor, because Long Beach, California, that's my hometown. And I think this was back in the 60s or 70s when he did this. But to what you were saying about swimming across this English Channel, I mean, it is 80% mental. I mean, you literally have to be in a specific frame of mind to take on this huge body of water.
Yes. Yeah.
That's like 10,000 times more powerful than we are as human beings. But at the same time, we can take on that same power as well and say, you know what, I can conquer that water. And I may not make it to France or wherever, you know, but at least, you know, I did what I was supposed to do, and know that I can, maybe next time I can travel a little bit further next time, you know, and know that we all have that within us. Julie, I want to thank you so much for taking the time out to grace the stage with me on the Kinetic Hour. It's great because I know it's getting later and later out there.
Oh, it's 10:40. It's 11. Wow.
Yeah. So tell the people how we can find you.
Well, first of all, I'd like to say thank you so much for having me as a guest. It's very clear that you've done so much research and background reading, and I think that really gives more depth and purpose and to the podcast. So thank you so much for that, because it takes a lot of time and energy to do that, and I think that's why the interview flowed like water.
Right.
So how can you find me? Basically, my website is www.julie-lewis.com. And then all my social media links on there, at Julie Miles Lewis for Instagram, my Facebook. I do have a YouTube channel, but it's work in progress. There's probably about 30 little short videos on there. If you go on Amazon, you will see Uncharted Waters. You'll also find Moving Mountains. So a lot of the information really is on my website. I would say that's the HQ, that's the Julie HQ. That tells you who I am, what I do, how you can find me, and how you can kind of take part in some of the retreats, the expeditions, the experiences. I think that's the best. There you go. So lovely to see it scrolling.
Yes. Hey, you know, this is how people can know that, you know, you're, yeah, you're the real deal. And, you know, you have a lot to offer. And, lastly, I'm going to pull this up here because I saw this. This is just one of your many awards that you've been given. How does it feel for you to get accolades like this at this stage of your life and career?
It's wonderful. You know, it's just without sounding pretentious, like proof of your existence, and that you are making an impact, and that people are. You know, you never really know who's reading or who's watching or who's, you know, who cares? So what? You know, she did this, so what? But I think because I've been encouraging people, it's not about me, I'm about it. And that it is getting more people out into nature, falling in love with nature, respecting nature, taking care of their bodies, thinking, you know, better, bigger thoughts kind of thing. So to be recognized for that is really like the cherry on the icing on the cake, you know. I mean, to me, it just says, okay, so all those hours of dedication and, you know, posting and writing and everything, they're actually making they're having a ripple effect, let's say. You know, if somebody breathes more easily or realizes one of their own dreams and ambitions as a result of this podcast, the book, or seeing an article on a team of people that have done, a trek or a climb and looked at the pictures and thought, well, they don't look like champion athletes. They look like regular people, all ages, all nationalities, all shapes and sizes, but they've got a common mission and they've achieved it. So maybe I could do something like that. So really, for me, it's about inspiring and encouraging and inviting others to live their wildest dreams now, because we don't know how much time we have on the planet, and we'll say, oh, tomorrow. When I was in the process of writing Uncharted Waters, I was procrastinating a little bit. I admit that. Most writers do that.
Right.
And, one of my colleagues said, are you a waiter or a writer? I went, oh, wow, because they said, oh, I'll wait till I've done this. I'll wait till I've done this. And she said, are you a waiter or a writer? And it really was like, and I said, I'm a writer. What would a writer do? She would write. So, sometimes it's looking at the identity. I'm an athlete. I'm a swimmer. What would a swimmer do? She would swim. I'm a podcast host. What would a podcast host? He would invite guests and do podcasts. So we have to identify with that role. And for me, I like to think that I'm a reflector, that my reflections on life and nature really encourage other people to see the world and expand the lens from a different perspective and go out and savor it through all of their senses.
Yeah. And the final question for you, and I like to ask my guests this towards the end, and you kind of alluded to it just now, but what does life mean to you?
What does life?
Yes.
Life.
What does life mean to you?
Yeah, for me, it's one big, great adventure, and I think it's living it joyfully, have a full and fulfilling life. It's pretty. I feel that everybody wants this, to be happy, to be healthy, to have a purpose, to make an impact, to have freedom, to have choices, but to have a smile, to actually feel joy. For me, it's one of my highest emotional priorities. It's joy, experiencing it, creating it. Because I think in my first book, one of the chapters is what brings you joy gives you energy, and we've all been there when we just get lost in the moment because we're running or we're writing or we get into the flow, into the zone, and it's joyful. And I think we need lots of joy. We need more joy in the world, that's for sure.
Absolutely.
So I think for me, the meaning of life is living a full and fulfilling life and being the best version of yourself, and then encouraging and inviting others to be their best self. And I go like this, it's like to put your arms around people,
right.
To actually be that mountain for somebody, to be that river, to be that tree that is so grounded in your roots and your values, and to lead by example.
Yeah, and I do like that, and thank you for that answer as well.
It's a long one, I know. It wasn't a short.
That's okay. No, that's okay. It's your answer, so it's okay. It's your answer. And once again, I want to thank you for being my guest on the show. Go to her website, it's julie-lewis.com. Her book is Uncharted Waters, Discover Your Hidden Depths. Very insightful book. And I just kind of scratched the surface of it. Come back later down the road and we can kind of deep dive even more into, what water can really do for us internally, some of the more science behind water, and how we can eat water through our food, because all of it matters. All of it matters. And yeah, I'd like to go deep diving in that. So yeah, come back later down the road, and we can go into different areas of the book and just life in general. You may have gone on another expedition by then.
Yes, exactly. Yes, yeah. And next time I'm in LA, I'll let you know in advance. Yeah, it would be
Oh,
great.
absolutely.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
yeah,
Yeah. So to everyone listening and watching, there's 1,000 podcasts that you can listen to. So thank you for tuning into the Kinetic Hour. Once again, go to my YouTube channel, the Kinetic Hour, KENNETIC. Subscribe, click thumbs up, leave your comments. Leave your comments regarding the comments. Go to Julie's website, get her book. Once again, thank you for coming on the Kinetic Hour. And to everyone tuning in, until next time.
Woo-hoo.